During the period of time that Brothers Keeper began, the West Virginia Baptist Convention was involved in a couple of major things. And during that period, there was a desire at Parchment Valley by the staff and the board to reach out into the community and give back as good neighbors would give back where they were. And one of the things that came out to us is that if you're going to be a disciple, you have to be involved in your community and in the world where you live, and be involved with servant evangelism. And that was a major emphasis during that period of time when Brothers Keeper began. And they could be out in the community, having a camp-like experience while they were at Parchment Valley, but also doing a lot of good. And I know every year from the time it began, they would reach out and touch 30 to 40 or more families. At the same time, have Bible studies and worship services and grow in community. And for the past 20 years or so, it has been a tremendous success.
Welcome to Brothers Keepers 2020.
Welcome to Brothers Keeper 2020.
Hola.
From Madrid, Spain.
Welcome to Brothers Keeper at Home 2020. We really miss you all, and we hope that maybe we can join you next year.
Now get to work.
Adios.
Bye. Ciao.
Adios.
Welcome, Brothers Keeper 2020 at Home.
I'm really, really proud of our team, of everything that we've done to keep going and to keep serving our community, but doing that in a safe way. And you all being here today helps us with what the next chapter is going to be, which is slowly but surely welcoming our community back into our space. I'm new at Facebook, as is Chris, and we have so many ideas for things that we want to do with the youth in this community.
Joe, what are you doing?
I'm bagging.
Let me see what's in your bag. Oh, nice.
I got all that.
Nice.
Oh, okay. Here, come on.
Troy, your weather predictions were off a lot.
They were just reversed.
False weather reports by Troy.
It's not supposed to rain till 2 though.
We're stuck. Decided to rain.
It's a little bit wet, guys, isn't it?
A little.
You know it, but that's the best time to work in West Virginia.
Alright, so it's round 3 of us back in the car due to rain.
Look at this rain.
Rain, rain, go away. Come again another day.
Joa is completely soaked here.
Won't rain until 2 o'clock, my foot.
Dude, we were in a torrential downpour at 9 o'clock, thanks Troy. And we didn't expect the rain to come till 1 or 2, thanks Troy. And it still came, and we were soaked.
Thanks, Troy.
Good morning, Troy again with BK 2020. We're getting ready to head out. It's a nice day, sunny as can be. We've checked the local forecast. Looks like we're good till at least 3 o'clock. Maybe some pop-up showers in the area, but we should be good for a while. We've got our bug spray. We've got our suntan lotion so we don't get burnt. Water, water, water. Sunscreen, water, some safety glasses. Looks like it's going to be a great day for construction here at BK 2020. We miss you guys.
When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, when brokenness and pain is all I know, oh, I won't be shaken, no, I won't be shaken, 'cause my feet doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love.
Hey folks, my name is Rich Blain and I'm lead pastor of South Parkersburg Baptist Church, and it is truly an honor for me to get to share a message with you for Brothers Keeper 2020, BK at home, and not the most ideal situation that we find ourselves in with all the COVID pandemic, and not the way we would obviously normally go about Brothers Keeper, but yet God can and God is continuing to work through this and through you all and others, and even in the midst of this pandemic. And so we just praise Him and thank Him for that. And though it may not look like it normally does, lives are still being changed. People are like yourself are making a difference in the lives of others. And I just personally want to say thank you for that. Thank you for being difference makers. Thank you for being great, which happens to be the title of my message today. Greatest. I titled it this because greatness is something that we all desire at some point probably. We maybe want to be the greatest student, or maybe not, but some do want to be the greatest student. Maybe you're into motorcycles, you want to be the greatest motorcycle racer, or you're a runner and you want to have the fastest time, be the best singer, the greatest musician, the greatest football player. The list can go on and on and on. And greatness can be defined really in a lot of different ways. Greatness can be defined by having the highest GPA, the fastest time, the most trophies, receiving the most top awards, whatever it might be. And there's nothing wrong with wanting those things and working hard to achieve those and to have goals and to want to be great. But if these are our sole purpose, our only desire in life, then we will be left feeling empty. We will be missing the point and the real meaning of greatness. I can share just a real quick personal story with that, because I used to coach our high school basketball team in Point Pleasant, and I was the head varsity coach for 12 years. And in 2011, we made the state tournament for the first time in 36 years. And it was a wonderful achievement. It was a goal we had been striving for, and put a lot of time and work in. And when that moment finally arrived, unfortunately, we got beat in the state tournament, but yet making that accomplishment, achieving that goal that we had was wonderful. But yet when it was all over, it was great, but it wasn't fulfilling. I remember my wife the day after said, "Well, how do you feel?" And I'm like, there was a lot of time and effort that went into it, and it was a great accomplishment, but yet I didn't feel fulfilled. And so know that if that's our sole purpose, being great in these ways, at some point in time it'll probably leave us feeling empty. The scriptural theme for BK at home is from Mark 12:30-31, and Jesus had been debating with some of the religious leaders, and when a teacher of the law came and asked him a question, he said, "Of all the commandments, which is the most important?" This is actually in verse 29. It says, "The most important one," answered Jesus, "is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And the second one is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these." Love God and love neighbor. No commandment greater. There is nothing greater, nothing more important in Jesus' eyes and what he was saying than to love God and love your neighbor. So really, if we get those right, if we make that our focus and our priority, then everything else will fall into place. Now, in reading through this passage in preparation for this message, there were a couple of things that really jumped out at me as I was reading through and studying. One is the concept of love. It's to love God and love your neighbor. And then the second thing that kept coming to me was this term, neighbor. So my mind kept going to this question: who is my neighbor? And it took me to a familiar parable for many that Jesus told, is known as the parable of the Good Samaritan. And it's about 12 verses, but I want to read it to you. It says, "On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. 'Teacher,' he asked, 'what must I do to inherit eternal life?' "What is written in the law?" he replied. "How do you read it?" And he answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" And in reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, he too passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was. And when he saw him, he took pity on him. And he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, which, by the way, wasn't cheap. And then he put the man on his donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any expense, any extra expense you may have." Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." And Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." Now, did you notice something there? The same 2 commandments that we looked at in Mark that Jesus said were most important are the ones that Jesus said if we do them, then we live. So real life, folks, real life as God intends, is found in loving God and loving our neighbor. Now, sometimes we may wonder, who is our neighbor? I mean, if we are to love our neighbor, don't we need to know who our neighbor is? And what and who maybe comes to your mind when you hear the word neighbor? Does the house next door to you, the people who live there, is that who comes to mind? Or maybe people in your neighborhood that you see every day? Is that who comes to mind? Maybe you live out somewhere where you can't see another house. Maybe you live out and you don't have any immediate people in eyesight. Does that mean you don't have a neighbor? Usually, though, someone comes to mind when we hear the term neighbor. But in Jesus' parable, there was a person in need. A person in need, beaten, robbed of all he had, and left for dead along the road. And the one who helped him was a Samaritan. Now, Samaritans were despised by the Jews. They were looked down on. They were seen as second-class citizens because they were a mixed race, a different group of people, and the Jews literally avoided them and looked down on them. But this Samaritan didn't let any of that bother him. He didn't let the racial division, the social and political differences didn't matter to him. And I think about, man, especially in light of where we are now and the recent events with the injustice and the racial unrest and the protests and all these things going on. You know, as followers of Christ, are there divisions that we let get in our way of loving our neighbor? Well, there shouldn't be. I mean, if we follow the example in this story that Jesus told, it doesn't matter, whoever is in need, we should come alongside and see them as our neighbor. But what mattered to this Samaritan was that there was someone in need and he was willing to do whatever he could do to help. And the 2 who passed by on the other side, it's really interesting. In most people's eyes in that culture, in that day and time, those 2 would be people that others looked upon as being, quote unquote, the greatest. A priest and a Levite, people with status, guys who others looked highly upon, but yet they passed by on the other side. And we don't know why. I mean, other than maybe it seems they weren't compassionate. Not trying to be judgmental here, but obviously there wasn't a lot of compassion in their life at that point in time toward this person. They were maybe more likely concerned for themselves than looking after or caring for someone else. So those deemed as most important, honored by others, deemed as the greatest, were unwilling to do the greatest act of loving someone else, serving someone else. But the Samaritan responded in love. Now, I love the interaction between Jesus and the expert here, and the expert in the law, because after telling this story, Jesus asked him, now, who was a neighbor to the man in need? And the man responded, the one who had mercy on him. Didn't blink an eye. It was an easy answer. The one who had mercy on him. And Jesus' comment following that, his charge to the man is one that I hope keeps ringing in our ears, where he says, go and do likewise. Go and do likewise. Go and do the same thing. Go and meet needs. Show compassion and mercy. No matter who they are, no matter what people may look like, no matter where they're from, show mercy. Have compassion toward them. That is what it means to love your neighbor, folks, and not just those who live next door. But it could very well be someone who does live next door. The key is having our eyes open and being sensitive to those who are in need and serving, showing compassion and mercy. That is the key to greatness. That is what it means to live out the greatest commandments of loving God and loving others. One other quick Bible story that reinforces this is when James and John, two of the disciples of Jesus, actually two of his inner core, the ones who spent the most time with him, got to witness things some of the other ones didn't. They come to Jesus one day and they ask him if they can have the choice seats in the kingdom. They want to be regarded as most important, as the greatest. And Jesus tells them and the others, he says this, whoever wants to be great, listen to this, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be servant of all. It's not what most, especially in that day and time, thought was the key to greatness. And many today wouldn't see it that way. But in Jesus' eyes, in his kingdom, serving others, helping others, extending mercy and compassion is what it means to be greatest. Not greatest in comparison to others, because folks, it's not a competition, but greatest because it is the greatest version of ourselves. And in some recent messages at my church, we've been looking at this whole situation with COVID-19 and the pandemic and not being able to go out and do as usual, as we normally would, being stuck inside some, or at least being limited to where we can go and who we can be around. We've been looking at this, talking about it as being a time of reset, a time where God has enabled us to reset our priorities. A time when so many have stepped up to help one another, to serve others who may need help, encouragement, support. It's been a time when things have really slowed down somewhat and caused us to pay attention to what is going on around us. Notice people who we may not have taken time to notice before, who maybe we wouldn't take time before to check in on and see if they needed anything. Well, folks, I hope that doesn't change. I hope that doesn't change. I hope that we continue to keep our eyes open to others and come alongside and be difference makers. BK at home. Wow. I mean, who would have ever thought that this would be where we are right now, that this would have happened? But it has. And I know the challenge has been to be difference makers right where you are. Be your brother's keeper wherever you live, wherever you are. And I personally want to say thank you. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for responding to the needs of others around you. Thank you for showing compassion and mercy. My hope is that this is an ongoing way of life for all of us, where we love God and love our neighbors. May we all continue to pursue greatness, not to be praised and applauded and seen as great in the eyes of others, but rather pursuing greatness in the eyes of God, living life with the greatest version of who God has created us to be and who God wants us to be. God bless you all again. It's been an honor to share a message with you. I hope this spoke to you in some way. Keep on keeping on. Keep being great. Keep showing compassion and mercy. And may we always love God and love our neighbor. God bless. Thank you.
are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, working in the heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here turning lives around. You are here turning lives around. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you, I worship you. Yeah, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Yes, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. No. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop, no, no. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. No, you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Yes, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Sing it. That is who you are. 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 Yeah. Will brothers keepers, let's hear you call it out. This is the first. This is the first day of the rest of your life. This is the first day of the rest of your life. So even in the dark, you can still see the light. It's gonna be alright. Oh yeah, it's gonna be alright. And love will hold us together, make us a shelter to weather the storm. And I'll be my brother's keepers, so the whole world